Hello. Can the other panelists hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Would it be okay if one of you guys set up the timer per speaker when the round starts?
I'll do it. Yeah,
Okay. Thank you.
no problem.
Hello. May I please get verbal consent from both Gov and Op if your teams are complete and ready to debate?
Pop is ready. Oh, sorry,
Gov.
it's Gov pala. Gov, sorry.
Huh. Op, are you ready? Walang ambag si Lola Flora. Opposition, are you ready?
I guess they're just not. Op, my grandmother, her name is Flora, so you shouldn't test my patience.
I'm sorry you're here, Lord
Ah.
Present.
It worked.
Are all three of you just using this?
Um, we're in the same place naman, and we'll just, yeah. I guess we're all here now, in a sense. Yeah.
Okay, nice. Okay, yay, now we can start. Hello, welcome to high school semifinals. I am your chair, Hannah Tio. On my imaginary left is CJ Carlos, and on my imaginary right is um I'm so sorry. Some the guy. Okay, now we may start. Debating on the motion, this house forgets the popularity of true crime entertainment, now calling on Prime Minister. Here.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay,
Please state your preferred pronouns and how you want to be POI'd.
um, you can just refer to me as them. If you have any POIs, just interrupt me. Um, I'll start my speech in three, two, one. A world where true crime entertainment is popular, which are unexplained mysteries of kidnapping, for instance, or unexplained documentaries of Jack the Ripper's mass murders, or Texas Chainsaw Massacre, for instance. In such a world, there had then been large markets of viewers who prefer these things and who subscribe to them. What does the counterfactual look like in a world without it? Number one, prevalent entertainment we have would be any other genre other than true crime entertainment. This looks like comedy, sitcoms, romance, or what have you. Any any other film or genre could take in the market as a popular genre as long as it's not true crime entertainment. Secondly, there's going to be a value of shock in any other instance when people perceive true crime entertainment anywhere else, right? When you see blood, for instance, when you see gore, uh, which are uh, tangential exposure to things that actually happened, and which certain viewers consumed through this true crime entertainment. For instance, people are likely to react. People are likely to react more more people are likely to react more differently. For instance, people are not going to become accustomed to these things. And thirdly, the non-popularity of true crime entertainment means a lot of individuals won't sink down the rabbit hole of watching more and more of these things. This would mean less ability of people, especially conspiracy theorists, who watch these things, to rise against mysterious parties such as the government or powerful state individuals, for instance. Given the fact that these true crime entertainment, are often capitalizing on the mystery of such incidents, and which are ultimately cliffhangers or inconclusive in nature for them to sell in the very first place, right? So why do we think a world without the popularity of true crime entertainment is ultimately going to be better? We're gonna give you five actors who are harmed by the popularity of true crime entertainment, right? Firstly, it's on an individual level, on the part of these on the viewers themselves, right? Meaning that they are going to be less likely to be able to meaningfully understand the in the reality of these crimes, like, right? Meaning that they are less desensitized to crime, given given the given the concept of diminishing marginal utility. For instance, people who continuously keep viewing these things are going to deem extreme instances depicted in this true crime popular instances of true crime entertainment as ordinary. And we think that even if op might say that things like gore as a general excess, we think that the ability uh, to be debilitated from when you viscerally compare what you have seen in actual events is different, in that you can personally attach things like, oh, uh, Jack the Ripper actually did this to someone else in real life, right? uh, the fact that these things are the fact that these things are not fictional and yet are lacking the complete truth. We think that there's a we think that there's the harm then, especially when uh, people are desensitized to it. Are uh, people are going to be are people are going to be desensitized to it. Secondly, we think that the state is also harmed in the process. Why? We think the state is harmed in the process as true crime entertainment becomes popular, or is the fact that that it has been popular, right? I think that the perception towards uh, the perception towards this this state as a party which viewers tend to attribute to to be the figure is it's going to lead to more is going to lead to more viewers conspiring that there's something the state did, there's something the state that there's something the state is trying to hide, right? There's going to be more conspiracies against the state. I think that people there we think that it's because people don't get the affinity to see to see actual reports of these events. Because they already people who consume true crime entertainment likely already fell down the rabbit hole of having the affinity to prefer the concept of the mystery of these true crime entertainments, right? And thirdly, we think that media, mainstream media itself is also harmed, right? We think that number one, the affinity of people to sink into rabbit holes uh, means that they get to they get to eventually do things like recommend these things to people they come in contact with, such as their family or friends or loved ones, for instance, or especially people who have the same interests, right? People who like these things, meaning conspiracy meaning viewers could gather on people viewers viewers could accumulate on this specific genre, which is true crime entertainment, perpetuating uh, perpetuating the rabbit hole further of ultimately preferring of perpetuating the rabbit hole of uh, popularizing such genre over every other genre that could have otherwise
As people's
flourished
livelihood
in
are
mainstream
affected
media.
even more.
And
In a sense,
lastly, uh, the people who are subject to this the people who are subject to these true crime entertainments are also harmed, right? We think that number one, they are most probably still alive, right? Especially the most recent especially the most recent documentaries of actual people in modern times, in modern times. And we think that they are most probably stigmatized given the fact that of the role they held in of the role they held, especially when people don't know what actually happened. And they could have conspiracies. And thirdly, you think that it's harder for them to reintegrate into society given the fact that they're stigmatized. For all those reasons, we're very proud to propose. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much for that speech, PM. Just to clarify, the name of the other panelist is Rodel Valdez. I'm sorry and thank you. Okay, now moving on. Let's call on the leader of the opposition. Here.
Here, here. Okay, so let me just take like a few seconds, set my timer and stuff like that. And then probably like a few heads up na rin. So my pronouns are he, him, but I don't really take offense if you call me anything else. Like, go. And then POIs, preferably before 5:30, is on text, and then after 5:30, you can raise it through voice. This is like the golden time to raise the said POI, since this is the most probable time that I'll accept it. So, like, let me just set up my timer. I can't find debate keeper. Ayan. So my speech will start in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So honestly, I would like to commend the government side for giving a faulty analysis of what true crime entertainment actually looks like in society right now. Okay? So notice how panel that they told you as to what entertainment looks like, right? And they told you that there are better genres like comedy and stuff like that. Well, let me tell you, like first response regarding this, that is not inherently true, right? Wherein you have to consider that entertainment can be anything that you want it to be, and this includes true crime entertainment because people feel the thrill of it, and that feeling of suspense is their form of entertainment, right? Wherein you have to consider entertainment can come in a serious tone, and that is what true crime provides, right? Okay, so a few signpostings before I start my speech. So probably I'll start with responses. I have 6 written down here, and then probably alongside these responses is a reclarification of the status quo and the reanalysis as well. And then thirdly is our constructives, and then I'll follow that up with the preemptions and the trade-off as well. Okay, so starting off with my responses. When they told you that these things are unexplained, right? Well, let me tell you, they did not give any clear examples of what true crime entertainment actually looks like in status quo. That's just a fault and penalize the government prime minister for not giving that. So how does this look like? Look at BuzzFeed Unsolved, for example, where you have to notice that they go through an in-depth analysis of each and specific case that they're going to run, right? Where you have to consider that true crime entertainment is something serious in society right now. These people who cater to true crime entertainment, they take it seriously. They don't just go willy-nilly and just say, oh, this happened in a crime, right? And I'll go back later as to what the counterfactual is, and somehow the government side did not really engage upon what really were the benefits coming from true crime entertainment as a whole. They just disregarded that in the first place, right? And I'll tell you that later in my constructives. So the second response, when they told you that there are better genres, I've already explained to you as to what entertainment actually looks like in society, and this is and why it is justifiable for other people to watch true crime media as a whole, right? So don't justify your side by letting them tell you that we don't have to we regret true crime entertainment because it has gore in it. Like 13 Reasons Why isn't even a form of true crime entertainment, and it has gore in it, right? Okay, so the third thing, when they told you about the value of shock, which is inherently triggering in a sense, right? So first level of analysis towards this is not an inherent harm coming from true crime media as a whole. As I've told you earlier, 13 Reasons Why has this as well. Horror films has this as well. When you have to notice, panel, that the level of triggering is something that is something present in all forms of media, right? And let me tell you, this is actually our preemption. I'll go back to this later in my preemption, but we're going to tell you as to why triggering is actually mitigated by true crime entertainment as a whole, right? The first response, when they told you about manipulating. This is actually the trade-off that we're willing to take in this debate, even though it is very unlikely for these people for these producers to actually manipulate the results of these true crime entertainments. We're going to tell you that this is our worst case scenario and that we are willing to take this trade-off. I'll go back to that later. And then the sixth response, so they told you, that it is visceral and that it is gore. Let me tell you that this is actually the important thing that makes true crime entertainment the thing that it is right now in society. This is what makes it popular, and this has its own benefits to society later. I'll go back to this later in my constructives. And lastly, for my last response, when they told you that this is fallacious against the state, let me tell you, true crime entertainment has a reason if they want to target and criticize the state, right? If they do, then the state probably did something wrong, and that's something that you can't really root back to true crime entertainment, right? And for all of these reasons, I'll then move on to my constructives. So, for our first constructive is the benefit of true crime entertainment, which is honestly exposure and awareness, right? Wherein you have to consider people that these true crime entertainments actually provide discourse in our communities, right? Wherein you have to consider sexual assault cases, genocide, hate crimes, and even police brutality. All of these things have been showcased in true crime entertainment. And then, because of this, people have been talking about it, right? Wherein you have to consider that these are social issues that we need to target right now. Okay, so that is something that the other side completely disregarded. That this is a benefit coming from true crime entertainment as a whole, right? Okay, and another and then the second thing about this is it actually creates avenues for other small cases, right? Wherein, for example, in the George Floyd case, right, wherein they had a documentary for him. So now, what do we see right now in society? Wherein you can see that there are a lot more small cases lifting up in, for example, YouTube or Facebook, for example. All of these things have been catalyzed by the fact that true crime entertainment exists. They know that they're not the only one. That what they're experiencing right now is not something only exclusive to them. This feeling that they have right now when they want to speak up, right? They want to talk about their experiences, right? And this is something that they completely disregarded. And that true crime entertainment is something so influential right now, and that is why it's important because it creates avenues, panel, and that is something that overall, no, thank you, they completely disregarded in this debate. For our second constructive. So for this one, it actually promotes critical thinking, right? And you have to notice, because of the fact that these true crime entertainments actually provide almost a new perspective, right? Hello, why? Okay, I'll just continue. A new perspective, right? Wherein most of the time, these true crime entertainments, like for example, BuzzFeed Unsolved, and then look at Soko, for example. All of these provide a true, full narrative of what actually
Where's the
happens.
mandatory POI?
Okay, sure.
Look, your case is crushing itself. You can't say that you have autonomy if it's popular, insofar as the vast majority of your friends recommend it. You have an affinity towards your friends, where you're less likely to watch and have your own autonomy.
Hello? How is this related to the debate exactly? We already told you that entertainment is something that's very subjective to people. If they want to watch true crime entertainment, they should. If that's what they enjoy, then sure. Okay, so going back to my second constructive about critical thinking, right? Wherein you have to notice that these types of entertainment actually show the full narrative, wherein they give an in-depth analysis of what actually happened in these crimes. So let's look at an example, let's look at an example. The Ted Bundy case, right? Wherein you have to notice that Ted Bundy actually has a form of psychological problems, right? Wherein this is the counterfactual that the other side is facing, that if not for true crime entertainments, it would only be the media, right? And the media, almost every single headline that they promote is something so shallow and only promotes the tip of the iceberg, right? This is the only thing showed by the media. And true crime entertainment mitigates that, right? And they give you who is Ted Bundy, who is George Floyd. These are questions that are not really asked in this form of in like media, right? And this is why true crime entertainment overall has a place in society. Before it has been a beneficial thing for society, and that's why it has its place, right? And with that, I have never been more proud to oppose. Here.
Okay, thank you so much for that speech, LO. Just a gentle reminder to be mindful of the mandatory POI rule. Okay, thank you. On the Deputy Prime Minister, you're here.
Cool. Just checking if this is audible.
Yes, it's audible.
Cool. For POIs, I will specifically take you at 4 minutes and 45 seconds, give you 5 seconds to engage, else I will not take you anymore, and I'm no longer obligated to take a POI anyway. Yeah, I'll be starting my speech in 3, two, one. There's an inherent difference when Fox plays the news and says Florida man breaks woman's jaw in her house versus when you see a Netflix recommendation heavily recommended by your friends that says Ted Bundy, the inner workings of the jawbreaker misogynist sociopath. This is regrettable insofar as media has the incentive, especially true crime entertainment and not true crime news information, has the incentive to be able to make these things very attractive to individuals to the point where they create defamative statements, to the point where they create defamative scripts, and to the point where they remove the dignity often of the most individuals by showing the trauma and the visceral nature and the very private nature of the experiences that they've been through, and they show to the whole world with their whole name bannered on it. There are three levels of responses. Then I'll argue why one, true crime has irreversible effects towards human dignity, and secondly, why the effects of these are exclusive under their side, and lastly, why they're under our side, we're able to show it, or we're able to mitigate it on the counterfactual. The first responses, 4 levels. They claim that these things are taken seriously by media. No, serious is not substitute for factual. A lot of Netflix shows, especially the Ted Bundy example that they gave you, have been filed with multiple defamatory lawsuits and multiple cease and desist lawsuits insofar as they literally don't censor the faces of these individuals. They show it to the vast majority of the world to the point where they're not even compensated, to the point where these individuals probably were not even preemptively informed of these things. The vast majority of individuals probably in the show did not get anything aside from defamatory information regarding them and the stigma that comes with it. Second, they tell you that entertainment is a choice. This just crushes them in the debate, and their case just dies in this debate because of this argument. Insofar as they need to justify the popularity. That means your friends recommend it, your social circles recommend it, your vast majority of individuals watch it and want you to watch it so that you're able to be in conversations and you're not able to be ostracized. Insofar as popularity means that they do not get to say that entertainment is a choice, insofar as the vast majority of your friends gravitate towards it, and you can no longer opt into other meaningful things. Why is this primarily harmful? It's because individuals who have psychological illnesses, individuals who have debilitating moral issues, probably likely opt into it and not have a visceral consent towards these things, insofar as that's your only choice to be able to socialize, for instance. And this disregards the vast majority of content warnings, insofar as you're an individual who already has mental health problems. The last thing is that they say that there are other forms of media that have gore anyway, and this is an effective way to be able to solve social issues. Presumably, the alternative towards this is the gravitation of individuals towards factual news. The fact is, when you promote Ted Bundy as Zac Efron, which is a big hug for individuals that people can simp for, there's far more likely to be empathetic towards those individuals rather than to actually appreciate the way in which he's able to murder and break people's jaws to begin with. So necessarily, you're unable to tip these scales of these social issues in a meaningful manner, insofar as the individuals that you're showing in these shows probably portray them in an unrealistic manner to begin with, or they conspire and talk about these individuals in an unrealistic manner because the incentive to make these things fascinating to individuals entail romanticization to the vast majority of people. The fact is, people opt into news less and opt into these things more, insofar as these people probably have hunky babes, for instance. First argument, why is true crime entertainment irreversibly harmful? 5 structural reasons. And note that this argument is important insofar as any sort of social benefit that you get out of true crime is outweighed by the harms. Secondly, the harms are on a massive scale because of popularity. And thirdly, the harms are irreversible. Therefore, there's no way by which things like mental health institutions, things like media, and things like your friends are able to combat these things. 5 structural reasons, therefore. First, I would suggest that survivors' traumas are revealed to everyone. This means that this person is famous and will probably get stigmatized because he or she is the victim of the Ted Bundy podcast, or hell, this person is probably a criminal as well. This is harmful insofar as, one, victims did not consent to this. Secondly, the incentive for individuals to be able to be good after their crimes is far less insofar as society stigmatizes them. Before the second layer, POI. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
POI?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So you have to consider, panel, that why you have to answer the question, why is it still taboo in the 21st century, right? And why is it still popular, right? Wherein these things are still here in society. That's because it's subjective.
Oh, it's probably not the way in which its popularity grows probably goes into recommendations. I'm unsure where that analysis comes from. Secondly, I would suggest that the ability of people who are suffering the same tendencies to opt into these crimes are far more likely because they have the gravitational ability to like put these things in a pedestal and say, ha, if Ted Bundy can do it, I can do it probably as well. So probably the individuals probably have a vast majority of support from the popularity that it gets. Therefore, the individuals does things like mass shootings, probably becomes racist towards other individuals. These things are affirmed by a large portion of the media, but secondly, affirmed by the large following of that media. Thirdly, there's too much cathartic value assigned to be able to kill an individual, to be able to value torture of an individual, because that's the climactic part of these stories. Therefore, the way in which people perceive bad things is, well, go shoot that person, go probably like break that person's jaw. That's harmful insofar as you're normalizing violence. Lastly, I would suggest that there's a lack of consent to people who have debilitating mental health to be able to watch these shows insofar as they're pressured by the vast majority of their friends, by the vast majority of society, else they would get ostracized under their side. Therefore, it's not really a choice, because your choice is probably reliant on other people as well. And if other people says that you should watch it regardless of your mental health, or even if you have a mental health issue, you're probably unlikely to be able to disclose it through this means to your friends, probably because you're shy as well. This means that on their side, there's a lot of systematic harm. But lastly, I would say that there's an inescapable visceral comparison to mental diseases to these crimes, which means that society's perception to individuals around them with actual mental disorders are harmful, insofar as you can say that a bipolar disorder individual has the same tendencies as Ted Bundy, has the same roots as Ted Bundy. That's inherently defamatory to that individual. These harms are exclusive under their side. The alternative under our side is probably that you're able to make individuals consent towards comedy and all these things. And even if they're not likely to be able to meaningfully consent, this does not debilitatively harm their moral psyche. For all those reasons, you must oppose. Propose rather, sorry.
Okay, thank you so much for that speech, DPM. Now calling on the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Here. DLO.
Hello. Hello. Can I please get a few more minutes because I'm trying to reconnect properly with my internet connection.
Okay, sure.
Thank you. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. Um, I'll just set up my timer. Okay. Um, I'll start my speech in three, two, one. Panel, you have to consider that these true crimes documentaries, these true crime entertainment shows are actually the ones that have made an impactful discourse within the society to actually move towards a change to the societal issues we have at present in status quo. Now, firstly, before I start my speech, let me start with a few signposting, right? Firstly, I'm going to give a meta response to their side. Secondly, the responses to their quote unquote constructives. And thirdly, a brief comparison as to why our worst case is still the better world to live in than their best case, which they haven't actually presented at the end of the day with their deputy prime minister. Firstly, their responses to our side are actually the minor things. They didn't actually give any responses to the constructives that we have provided. The constructives that my leader of opposition has provided is the exposure of these societal issues, is the importance of the critical thinking to be integrated to the people, and thus will create a societal change, and thus will create and thus will allow the oppressed to actually open to and thus allow doors to open for the oppressed to actually fight back for what to actually fight back from the oppression that they have been fighting for, right? So next, after my meta-analysis, I will move on to my responses. Firstly, they have stated that the survivors' trauma are actually exposed and that these victims did not consent to this. First point of response is that these true crime entertainment does not release these stories of other oppressed people automatically, right? They undergo through processes, they interview these people, they ask for their consent. So their claim that these victims are actually victimized because they did not consent, because they are next, it actually puts people into the pedestal and actually allows the influence of these, say for example, these psychological killers such as Ted Bundy to actually influence these other people to do the same, right? They're demonizing the audiences by saying that they are stupid, that by saying that they're stupid enough to actually follow through the actions of what these psychological killers actually do, right? While conversely, the impact to these people is that they become more afraid. Now, why is this important? Because their fear, the fear that grows within them, actually makes them conscious of what is happening in the world. The fear that grows within them makes them prepared for what can happen in the future, from what can happen to them. These stories actually make them aware of the things that these do, and that of the things that these psychological killers or these oppressors do, and thus they will be able to actually do the things that they need to do, right? Now, they have stated that it affects the mental health of people. Now, firstly, even if it affects the mental health of people in the very first place, it's still their choice of whether or not they want to watch that true and crime entertainment, right? Therefore, they know what they're going through. And even if these true crime documentaries actually affect the mental health of these people, it is a willing trade-off. Why is that so? It's because the impacts of actually influencing these other people, the impacts of actually being aware to these societal issues is heavier than that of the men than that of the mental health of people. And even if it does, and even if so that does happen, I'm going to prove to you later in my extensions. So what are the in my extensions, I'm going to have two discussions. Firstly, what are the harms? What does the world look like without the popularization of the true crime entertainment, and the harms of this, and why is this likely? And secondly, I'm going to present to you the best case and worst case of this debate, and why our worst case is still the better ones at the end of the day. Firstly, what does the world look like without the popularization of this true crime entertainment, right? One, it imposes a less exposure to the other people and less publicity to the true events. Now, this is harmful because majority of the time that these forms of entertainment are are actually the ones that made an impact. Now, why is this likely? First level, it because it reveals the realistic perspective of what actually happens. In comparison to other forms of media, such as the movies, such as, say, for example, what my LO has stated, the 13 reasons why, it only puts up a single fraction of what actually happened in the scenario. What in comparison, in the true crime documentaries, it actually reveals the processes. It actually reveals what actually happened. It reveals the feelings of the oppressed. It reveals the feelings of the family that is connected to the one who has actually been oppressed. Now, this is because what the outcome of this is that people become more aware and people become more conscious of the processes rather than what actually happened, rather than a small fraction of what actually happened. This is important. Why? A, it mobilizes movement. It allows the voices of other people to actually be spread out. It allows these oppressed people to actually stand up for themselves and get out of the closet and actually fight for their rights. Next, it creates a societal changes. After these people have already started to come out and voice out their opinions and voice out the oppressions that they have experienced, it creates societal changes. Macro effects produces macro effects. Now, where does this come along with status quo, right? What is the parallel to this? Firstly, in the movements of BLM, we all know that BLM started from a
For
small
information.
later. That is that a mandatory? Okay. We all know that BLM started from a small fraction of people in the social media, right? And then it becomes into documentaries and true crime entertainments. It sheds light on what actually happened. It sheds
For
light on
information.
the. Is that a mandatory?
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
Look,
Okay.
your
Sure.
case is killing itself again. You can't argue that you're going to not inflict the minority's trauma and also get sympathy. How are you able to get sympathy from Zac Efron being Ted Bundy?
Okay. Okay, let's just move aside the Ted Bundy case, right? Let's move on to the true crime documentaries presented by Soka, presented by BuzzFeed, presented by all other forms of media in the YouTubers world, right? Those cases are the real life cases. Okay? It sheds on empathy to other people because, say, for example, I am an oppressed person and I've experienced the oppression that this particular person in the documentary has experienced, right? I relate to that. Therefore, when the issues or when the oppression that I've experienced and that person experienced is shed light upon on, then people will actually create a change. Why is this so? Why is this likely? It's because they have figured out the visceralities that you keep on this demonizing, right? Because it reveals the processes. It narrows down the cases. It narrows down everything that has happened in that scenario. Now, with that being said, I've never been more proud to oppose because in our world, we still benefit the society, the individuals, and thus create a better change in the society itself. With that being said, I am very proud to oppose. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much for that speech, DLO. Now calling on the government whip. Here.
Hello, ay, wait lang. Can I be heard?
Yes, you're
Hello? Can please someone confirm? I can't hear anything.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'll just set my timer. Wait lang. 7, 8. Okay. I'll start. Wait lang. I'll start my speech in 3, 2. Okay, again. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. I only have two issues in this debate. Number one, the comparison of what the world looked like with the presence of true crime entertainment and media in connection with the status quo. But secondly, why our counterfactual is much more better, or why is it ineffective on sticking on the status quo when the rise of this true crime media, for example, for entertainment, right? Firstly, when it comes to what the world looks like with the presence of this on the present in the status quo, right? What's the clash of your opposition? Firstly, what they told you is that the only whole case of of your whole opposition is one, it will create discourse because it will benefit when it comes to awareness, for example, because of the presence, for example, or revealing the true stories when it comes to true crime. But secondly, it will lead to discourse, and lastly, it will create a social change, right? So number one, we how do we dismantle this case, right? My partners already told you that awareness and discord is not exclusive only on their side, right? Because if you can see, we could better cater to this because number one, we have a better evidence, for example, when it comes to police investigation, rather than to them that all of the things that is presented to these documentaries are mainly came from theories and conspiracies, for example, of the researchers, for example, or the writers of this in the media, right? Firstly, I don't think that you can provide awareness if everything, for example, happened in that happened in the discourse in the society, if it came from conspiracies and theories, right? So why do we better cater to this case, right? Number one, we announce, for example, to news, for example, for awareness, because through news, for example, which a better model, since it has a counter check mechanism, wherein before it is released to the public, it is much more better because it is counter checked by everything in order for us to assess, for example, that before we release this news, for example, this is true and no one can debunk this at the very end of the day, right? If you can see, Jay already POI earlier the LO. Jay said that peer pressure is present in society. That's why even you don't want to, even if that you don't want to watch, for example, this true crime, you are still incentivized to watch, right? What does the LO told you? He answered, number one, it is irrelevant since he doesn't bite the bullet and disregard it. That's why when it comes to engaging, they don't have the chance to win in this debate. But secondly, they told you that if they want to watch it, since it's their autonomy, right? So Jay's discussion is very clear that the importance of media, wherein they have to focus on its impacts to the society, wherein there are a lot of media news for shows, for example, that has been faced, for example, suits because of the fact of how it impacts the people when it comes to psychological perspective of the people and the viewers when it comes to media entertainment. So if you can see, what is the importance, for example, of the MTRCB, for example, in the censorship, because of the fact that it censored the harmful things that could harm the psychological illness. That's why there is no autonomy, for example, in media because of the fact that depending on its impacts to the people. When it comes to DLO discussion, when it comes to lessening the exposure because of the real things happening in society, if you can see, the ultimate goal of your whole opposition is they want to achieve discourse and social change. When it comes to social change, if you can see, there's a vague concept that you want to achieve, and there is no clear mechanism on how you can achieve a social change, for example, when you only watch this true crime media, given the fact that all of these things that happening in true crime entertainment came from conspiracies and theories, compared to our model wherein there's a much more better evidence, for example, because this is proven by the FBI, for example, or the news, for example, wherein everything is filtered, for example, for a better catering to the audience, right? So if you can see, when it comes to the discussion of your whole to the whole opposition, there's things that are contradictory when it comes to the discussion. It means that they leads to crashing their own cases of their own for the whole team, right? Because if you can see, they told you that they will gain empathy, for example, by proving true stories, right? Jay is very clear when it comes to discussion that you can get there will be a comparison when it comes to the on how people perspect, for example, on the impacts, for example, to certain victims because of the fact that people, for example, will try to gain empathy, for example, to these true crimes compared to those people who also experience this kind of things. But even though that they doesn't publicize, for example, this kind of things, people will think then that this victims that is exposed, for example, has a better story, for example. That's why it's much better when it comes to gaining to empathy compared to the people who are proven by police, for example, even that they both experience the same thing, right? So what are the discussion of the government? That's why let's crystallize the win for your government. Firstly, we cater to the stakeholders when it comes to the vulnerability of them. That's why when it comes to stakeholder analysis, we better cater and we win this battle when it comes to the standards, right? So what did my partner told you in three things when it comes to stakeholders? Number one, the vulnerability of the audience, but secondly, on how it involved, for example, in people on how it impact people in the true crimes, for example, when it comes to these documentaries, but secondly, on how it impact the society when it comes to state and the community itself, right? What are your contribution in this discussion? Firstly, when it comes to audience, for example, in the exposure to true crimes affect the psychological um, aspect, for example, in our body negatively. So there is a shocking value, for example, that triggers anxiety, for example, or that could lead to bipolar and and affects the mental capacity of an individual, right? So if you can see, the exposure to sensitive aspects in media commonly creates, for example, to creating the fear on full view, for example, that is inherently harmful in three levels. Firstly, for example, to those kids who watch these documentaries, but secondly, for those people who have incapable or unstable mental state, but lastly, people who, out of curiosity or, for example, to peer pressure, watch these documentaries that could form phobia and in the long run, right? When it comes to the viewers of true crime, if you can see, part of true crime entertainment, viewers meaningfully understand, for example, crimes that they put in depth analysis, for example, when it comes to this crime, that viewers form conspiracies and theories. So why is this regrettable at the very end of the day, right? Number one, the most common agent of advertisement of media is through recommendation of peers, right? So Jay discussed that peer pressure will impact someone to watch, since this is watched, for example, by the majority, even if at the first place they don't want to. So if you can see, the spread of disinformation and misinformation will came from these conspiracies and theories that will spread, for example, to hawks and fake news, for example, or fear mongering when it comes to certain community. Secondly, when it comes to psychopath, for example, or psychopath viewers, for example, or those people who have bad incentive at the very end of the day, right? If you can see, they will feel much more gratified, because if you can see, other people in the society felt that they are much more aroused, for example, or they are feel satisfied when it comes to these viewers. That's why they don't want to, they will continue what they want to do at the very end of the day, because it arouses, for example, a lot of audiences. But secondly, it harms the society at the end of the day, right? When it comes to the state, if you can see, there will be less validation to the government crime agency, since true crime, for example, often depicted that FBI, for example, doesn't give or disclose information to lessen the hoaxes and fear mongering, right? In conclusion, people will continue to believe these fake conspiracies and theories, even if it's totally false, right? This is harmful because the rise of true crime already equates of people believing these theories compared to facts that is based on the evidences that is provided by these government agencies at the very end of the day, right? If you see, when it comes to community, we are very clear that people often compared as an experience, for example, compared to other people who also equated, for example, to this discussion, right? So why do we win this debate, right? Firstly, we talk to you about the stakeholder analysis of why we better cater that. And secondly, we cater to the long run, for example, and how we will benefit much more when it comes to the spread of fear, for example, or the hoaxes or misinformation. For all those reasons, I am proud to propose. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much for that speech, Gov Whip. Now calling on the opposition whip. Here, here.
Hold on, can I be heard?
Yeah.
It looks like there's feedback, so I'm gonna. Hello, hello. Can I be heard already?
Yes, that's better.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Is there any more background noise that needs to be addressed?
It's fine for me.
All right. So before I begin my speech, few clarifications. Pronouns are he and him. I'll take my POI at 5 minutes 40 seconds because that's the golden time. And POI is through the voice channel. And with all of those said, I'm going to begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, you have to notice here the lack of sophistication coming in from the government side alone, right? Let me tell you that most of their case arguments revolve around actually faulty analysis. And at the end of the day, what they say about them winning the debate, that's what we call theoretical, right? Now, first, let me compare these words in a way where we actually give you the true meaning of what it means to actually have true crime entertainment. First, what was the first narrative that we get from these people coming into the debate, right? They told us that coming into this debate, they tell us that these theories are conspiracies and that's what form these true crime entertainments. First, a meta-analysis. Let's get to actually read the motion here, right? They get to analyze what is true because of the fact that they can critically think, and that ties back to my argument of my leader of opposition about critical thinking. Also, when we go back to read the motion, when we clearly read true crime entertainment, not theoretical crime entertainment. And if we actually try to dig deeper as to what we actually get to mean by this, we actually get to know that coming in from my DLO alone, we tell you that there are actually processes to actually
prove the factuality of these said shows, right? And therefore, their whole case about banking it on theories or conspiracies, and that these shows are nothing more than conspiracy things that must be addressed by society, is actually an inherently false one. And let me tell you a very sad analysis at the end of the day, right? Now, let me go on to the peer pressure analysis that they were talking to us about. Right? Let's say that person A tells me that, hey man, you're gonna go watch this Ted Bundy podcast, and automatically they tell us that, oh my gosh, this person is going to go and make me watch this. I'm going to get peer pressure, and at the end of the day I'm going to get forced to do everything, right? We tell you that that is the reason why their stakeholder analysis is actually something that's unrealistic. Why? Because when people actually tell you to watch a show, you don't get peer pressured right away. And even if you do, the moment you click on that certain site and choose to watch the show that you want to watch, when you actually realize that you can critically think and actually make a proper, analysis as to what you can actually see in the show, you get to realize, oh, this type of entertainment isn't for me, and I don't want to watch it. People are not forced, because at the end of the day, the choice falls on the individual and not on society to burden them to watch these shows in the first place, right? Next, they were talking to us about mechanizations. Let me tell you that this isn't a this house would motion. This is a this house regrets motion. When we get to analysis, we get an analysis as to how the past has continually affected the present and why these things are inherently more beneficial than good. And speaking of benefits, I don't see any real benefits coming in from the government side, because the only thing I can really hear is like, contradictory arguments as to how our side fails to stand up because of the fact that it's, a double-sided case that leads to the death of both cases. But we tell you that's inherently false, and the only thing that holds true in is their own cases, right? Now, let me tell you that their thing about empathy, they're quote-unquote constructive about that by proving the stories, is actually true. First, a fresh analysis coming into this debate, right? Let me tell you, when you read a news headline and see black man killed on street, when you actually look at that, sure, you feel a direct empathy. But when you actually get to see the real story behind it, the psychological pressures, the traumas, the actual real reasons, the feelings of the people involved, and the actual, cognitive system thinking of the people involved in those said things, then at the end of the day, you get a more and less narrow vision of what you want to see in those said shows alone, right? We already told you that coming into this debate, that's already something that's been proven again and again. This is not a conspiracy theory, ladies and gentlemen. This is a debate about true crime entertainment, where it actually goes through proper analysis of what happens next. And even if they don't, these people are not stupid enough to actually get. They have the choice to know that, I have the choice to whether to watch this or not. If it doesn't cater to my definition of entertainment, which is, mind you, coming in from my first two speakers alone, was already something that was, cleared up and is something that's already been clarified. We tell you that the meaning of entertainment is subjective to the form of the interest of the people, not just because I watch some Tom and Jerry episode and think it's funny and enjoyable. That doesn't mean it's actually entertainment in itself. When I say entertainment, does it actually cater to my self-interest? Do I actually like this? Can I actually enjoy from this? That's what we mean by entertainment. And that's what we mean by the fact that this is something that's flexible in nature. Now, a few issues coming into this debate, right? In which world do these people actually get a clearer and more grounded analysis into which paradigm true crime entertainment lives on, right? We tell you that from our side alone, we actually give these people a form of medium where they can communicate. Here, another fresh analysis coming into this debate. True crime entertainment actually creates a form of medium of communication for the people to actually be given a chance to voice out their experiences and to be able to give them the hope that they also sought for, to give more sound to the voice that they want to be heard at the end of the day, right? These files don't get left unresolved on the police desks that they also want to be resolved, because true crime entertainment sheds light on these people. It gives the individuals empathy. It gives society more and actually clearer perspectives, and not a narrow one when they all blame the same things on the same damn people, when at the end of the day, these people aren't stupid enough to buy that, because it ties back to critical thinking, something that wasn't responded to. And also, speaking of something that wasn't responded to, they weren't responding to our case about how this thing can actually be something of a more societal change, rather than it is more of an individual change. We've already accepted the trade-offs that we were willing to give, right? Here, another comparative as to what. All right, I'll take it.
Look, your fresh analysis isn't substitute for actual responses, but insofar as there's demand for the romanticization of these crimes, why is the portrayal still factual?
The portrayal is still factual because I've already made you understand that these things go through the proper analysis. These things go through proper screening, proper, identification of what happened, and they actually recreate it, not stage it in a way wherein they go and fake everything. We tell you that they actually take a neutral stance and then they recreate it to let the people see that this is what's happening. And therefore, with all of that clarified, I've already told you the benefits coming into that. First, now a few more comparatives before I end this and crush the debate, right? I already told you that coming in from our side, we've already promoted societal changes, B promoted a form of communication for the people whose voices want to be heard out. C actually told you that the people in model of government side are people who are too easily swayed and too easily impressionable, and therefore is not a realistic portrayal of the stakeholders at hand. And D, we actually tell you that coming in from this, we actually cater to all of the stakeholders that they were so telling us about. The individuals, the society as we know it, right? Now, here, a best case and worst case analogy. At our best case, we actually tell you that coming in from our best side, we tell you that these people can actually voice out their opinions and the realities for the people who want to be heard in the first place. We actually tell you that these people are more of a cognitive thinker and not people who are so easily impressionable that when they get told to watch a show, they go ahead and get peer pressured, thinking of like over irrational things at the end of the day. While at our worst, sure, we'll take the trade-off of people actually being subjected to relapses of mental trauma. But we tell you that is already rebutted by the factual of choice. We actually tell you that these people will know whether they want or may not want to watch these things at the end of the day. It's still better than their best, because at their best, we don't get a clear world as to what their benefits look like, and the only thing they really give us are harms coming in from our side, leaving their side with nothing but dust. With all of that said, very proud to oppose.
Okay, thank you so much for that speech, Upwit. To end the case for the opposition bench, now calling on opposition reply. Here.
You're here. So let me just set my timer. Of course, like my few heads up. So pronouns he, him, and of course no POIs. So my reply speech. Oh wait, let me just set like of 10 seconds. Something happened. Ayan, okay. So it's all done. It's all said and done. Huh? So my speech will start in 5, 4, through 5, 4, 3, excuse me, 2, and 1. So, panel, if you want to give the win to a side wherein they don't really understand what current status quo is and don't even really recognize what the true definition of what true crime entertainment really is, sure, give the win to the government side, right? And meanwhile, coming into you in this debate as the opposition side, we told you how clear it was that true crime entertainment has its benefits before, that its popularity and influence among society has its benefits, right? I'll go back to this later, targeting as to why they had no engagements onto our side and why they had no mutually exclusive, have no exclusive benefits coming from their side, right? Okay, so the first thing worth of note in this debate is when they told you that true crime entertainment is theoretical, and it's it's theoretical, right? Wherein we told you that this is not inherently true. These people, these producers, that somehow they have also been demonizing in this debate, right? These people go through extensive things like such as screenings, right? This is something that's been clarified to you by by our three speakers, right? And that is something that they also clearly did not understand in this debate at all, as to what the true definition of what true crime entertainment really is, right? Okay, so notice how they do not actually understand how it works. They bank their whole case on this fact that true crime is something theoretical, and that's something overall really problematic to this debate, right? Almost 5 minutes of their speeches was addressing as to what the definition of true crime is theoretical, right? Honestly, penalize them for that. The second thing, their whole stance banked on very specific nuances and the faulty definition of what true crime really is, right? Okay, so the third thing I'm going to notice is when they told you is that they tried to engage on our case, right? I'm sorry, tried to engage on their case, right? Even if it was nonsensical and non-substantial to this debate, right? We already told you that this is something that it has its benefits. We already told you our trade-offs that we are willing to accept, right? What were their trade-offs coming to this debate, right? They didn't even give you their best case or worst case scenario, right? All of they have been doing is giving out faulty analysis of what true crime really is, right? Okay, so the fourth thing worth of notice, they have continually been demonizing the audience as some of these people who are almost stupid as to some sense that, hey, I'm gonna shoot a guy because I saw it in a true crime entertainment show, right? I'm gonna be the new Ted Bundy. That's something nonsensical. Okay, probably if you have a psychological disorder, it's acceptable. But even then, the majority of cases, this does not happen, right? You don't see in the news that somebody has been killing somebody because of the fact that he watched a true crime documentary, right? The second thing, they've continually been demonizing the producers in this way, right? Completely been telling you that all they want is money, and and to get this money that they would provide faulty representations of what of what really happened in true crime, right? That's something that they didn't expand upon, and something that should be disregarded in this debate overall. The fifth thing worth of notice is they didn't give their clear counterfactual of the media, right? And most of the time, the media takes in this very vague and tip of the iceberg case in portraying these murder cases, for example. And usually, they only show you these headlines of black man kills somebody, right? And we tell you that coming into true crime documentaries, they go through an in-depth analysis of what actually happens, right? Why did this happen? Who is this person? What is his background, right? This is something that can only come from true crime documentaries and entertainment in the first place, right? They've continually been disregarding what true crime entertainment really is as something that's serious. Somehow they see it as like a factual thing, a fictional thing, right? And we tell you this is true. This is what's happening in society right now. It's true and it's there for a reason, right? No, and for the last thing, notice how they have no constructives at all coming from their side. They give you no benefits, no accepting of harms, right? And they did not tie it back at all to the why this popularity matters. Well, in coming to our side, we told you that these benefits, that this popularity has a place, right? And it ties back to our first argument going into exposure, transparency, and awareness, right? There's something that has been left to be disregarded by the other guy's side and not engaged upon, right? And the last thing worth of note is, honestly, where is your trade-off, guys? Right, where? Okay, and with that, I've never been more proud to oppose. Here.
Okay, thank you so much for that speech, Gov Reply. Now to end this debate, thank you for that speech, Op Reply. Now to end this debate, calling on Gov Reply.
Hi, just checking if it's audible.
Yes, audible.
Yeah, cool. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. It may be May at the moment, but it's starting to feel like March Madness because this lower seed is going to upset the seed and proceed to finals for 3 reasons. 1, I'll prove to you why we win. Secondly, I prove to you why we're able to win on a marginal scale. And thirdly, why we're able to win on a unanimous decision. First is why we're able to win on the basis of technicality. Note that this team is unable to be able to understand and comprehend the word popularity at all. Insofar as this is the same team that says, it's popular, therefore we have social issues. They're still unable to accept that you're unable to meaningfully consent into those things simply because your friend recommends it, simply because your family recommends it, and presumably you have affinity towards individuals to begin with. I do not think that popularity means that you have consent insofar as there are structural levers for you to be able to opt into these things, but there's ostracization for you if you do not opt to these things. Insofar as the vast majority of individuals are sociable, I do not think that they're able to receive that benefit at all. The second reason on technicality is that you're just unable to understand the case that we give you. We put to you that, yeah, at some point these things might be true things, but they're fantasized, fetishized, and the vast majority of the entertainment or podcasts that talk about the fetishization of these things, That means they're creating theories about these things. That's why they're creating debilitating, like borderline defamatory things against the law or defamatory ideals in the law. That doesn't mean theoretical. This means that there are theories that spur out of it that are unable to be countered by the vast majority of individuals on the basis of the fetishization of these things. We put to you that on our side, we win on the basis of technicality insofar as we give you the incentive structures of the vast majority of individuals, and why that's overridden by the popularity. The incentive structure of people who probably were not able to consent to the vast majority of these shows, to the point where they're being defamed, they're being stigmatized, they're being lacking consent, and they're inescapable visceral comparisons to the vast majority of their mental diseases, leading to stigma. They're unable to understand it, and the response was literally just, it's theoretical. That just doesn't make any sense. The second reason is on the basis of argumentation. Note that vague words such as proper analysis, critical thinking, serious analysis is not substitute for an actual mechanism in this debate. We put to you that the reasons why you win this debate is we're able to mechanize things like disease and disease orders, things like trauma that's likely to be widespread, things like the lack of consent of the individuals, things like the visceral comparisons of these mental diseases to the point of stigma. No, they cannot just say that there's proper analysis when we told you that the vast majority of the time this is disregarded insofar as you want to be sociable to your friends. For instance, even if you have mental illness, critical thinking cannot exist insofar as there's a herd idea that you need to be able to opt into this rather than over your ability to be mentally sane. For instance, there's a lack of ability to be serious insofar as Ted Bundy's abs is as hot as Zac Efron, for instance, right? Therefore, those things are overridden by the vast majority of the time. The last thing is the reason why you win is because of responses. The only response that they put to you is that well, these things aren't realistic. They did not give any model, and they did not give any example. When we put to you that we were very charitable in this debate, we told you that at some point, that there might be theories, there might be things like fantasization, there might be things like realistic ideals in these documentaries, but they're overshadowed by the vast majority of the portrayal insofar as Netflix wants these things wants the demand or the individuals to naturally gravitate towards their Netflix shows. Panel, you need to give this debate to us. It's game time.
Yes, with that, the debate is done. Yes, you may now cross the house. Yay.